And we are live. Let me get this here. Move that there. Give me 1 second. What's up, guys? All right.
What's up?
I just wanted to say for the viewers, I got to get this going over here on Facebook. Give me 1 second. Minimize that. Minimize that. So I can see what they're saying. If anybody wants to watch, if they got any questions. We had some cancellations. A few people had to work. And let me pause that. How you doing, Brown Dwarf? What's going on? Hi, Kim. Hi, Lady of the Woods. I'm just getting set up here.
What's up, Brown Dwarf?
Howie, how you doing? I was saying we had a few viewers or a few people that were going to come on with us tonight. A couple of them, the link didn't work for some reason, and a couple other ones couldn't make it. A few may pop in here or there. Most of you guys know Shaky, Shane, and this is my buddy Dan that I research with. We were going to talk about a few things that the other researchers had found. A buddy of mine, Chris, had actually come across a few things, some prints in the snow, and he was talking about casting them, and we were kind of going to share that. I was hoping that he could hop on. But what I was going to do first, before we kind of get into things, I wanted to share this. Hold on, hang on 1 second. I wanted to share this information that I just came across about Todd Standing from the Global News. So let me share that, and hopefully everybody can see it. Let me see if I can pull that up. And then let me know if everybody can see this.
Yep.
All right, it says, this is new. This is 10 minutes ago. This was like posted on somebody's page. Alberta man part of California lawsuit to prove Sasquatch is real. In quotes, Todd says, we can't lose. Play the video. You should be able to see it.
G'day, my name's Todd Standing. I am the man who takes people out into the field and has them either live interact with or eyewitness a Sasquatch. Done it with the best in the world. PhDs, anthropologists, professors, wildlife biologists, Survivor Man himself has been guided out into the hardcore backcountry wilderness of North America and live interacted with Sasquatch on multiple occasions. 10 years ago, I released a documentary that we used to work towards species protection and recognition of Sasquatch. Now here I am again releasing a new documentary so significant, I'll use it as evidence in a court of law to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the species commonly referred to as Bigfoot does currently reside here in the forests of North America. I'm launching lawsuits against U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Canadian Fish and Wildlife Services for not recognizing this indigenous species. With this feature film entitled Discovering Bigfoot and the introduction of evidence from the most elite specialists in the fields of wildlife biology, anthropology, fingerprint experts, and DNA, I intend to prove in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt that the most man-like primate on the planet currently resides right here in the forests of North America. Here's a preview of my soon-to-be-released documentary. For more information, go to sylvatic.com and stay tuned next week for more information.
So basically, it goes on to say an Alberta man, blah, 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 files a lawsuit with the state of California Thursday. Todd Standing, who originally from Edmonton, studied at
Guys, if you think it's cold down there in the lower mainland,
sorry, guys.
you can imagine what it must have felt
That
like
clicked
for some
on
of
for
the
me.
100.
Let me stop sharing so I can finish reading. It's interesting what he's trying to do, but I was going to keep reading what the article actually entailed. He states, when we prove that we are successful, the species will be recognized and as an indigenous wildlife species. And then fish and wildlife in California, Canada, United States, everywhere, we'll have to start recognizing the species and studying them, doing biological surveys. What else does it say?
There's Chris.
Yo.
Hey, Chris.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead. Standing said he has DNA and hair samples that prove Sasquatch not only exists in California, but British Columbia and Alberta. And this is the first I'm hearing that Standing has DNA and hair samples. And I'll tell you, the article and the video is done by Global News. That is where I shared the video from. Let's see. Standing says half of my evidence from Alberta. He said, I've had lots of success in Alberta, but I have one particular research site north of Nordegg. We've had live interactions with Sasquatch there, end quote. Don't take my word for it. He says, come out with me and I'll show you a Sasquatch in the field. I challenge you to come out on an expedition with me to Alberta. In your own backyard, I will show you a Sasquatch, end quote. Let's see. Goes on to talk about the Canadian Encyclopedia, how Sasquatch is referred to a creature whose existence is suggested but has not yet been confirmed by the scientific community. It's quite interesting that the news outlets are picking up on this. What's your guys' take on that?
I think it's going to be, I don't know. This is the first I've heard of DNA and hair samples. So that could be a game changer. But there's nothing in Gene Bank to compare those samples to. So to say what those samples are exactly, I would think is going to be tough.
That's kind of the way I looked at it, because that was the first I've heard of any type of samples that he has. So I don't know.
First I've heard too.
That may be why Meldrum is actually going along with this or backing the whole situation. I think it's good. I mean, we talked to Claudia the other day, Ackley. Well, about a week ago, I knew that she also was suing the government. I don't know how much it stands to prove something, because, I mean, you're taking something into a court of law. So I guess if you win in a court of law, what he's saying is he's forcing their hand, so the court will tell, essentially make the forest rangers and the biologists get out there and prove that they're real. Hopefully
Right.
it'll work. Hopefully. Let me check the live chat here. Big-headed Martian, how you doing? Huntington Beach, how are you? Got about 20 on watching now. I was saying earlier we had a few that actually canceled due to work and link issues. We actually just got Chris on. How are you, Chris?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think you know
All right,
Shane. Shane's
Yes, sir.
here. My buddy Steve Peck, and one of my researchers, Dan. That's Chris.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Shiggy.
Hey, man, what's happening?
Not too much. Yourself?
Above ground, looking at the grass and not the roots.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
My damn
That's
internet
awesome.
keeps going out up here. Damn wind's blowing real hard.
That happens. I actually wanted to give, kind of like a tribute to Dr. Bindernagel and his family. My condolences. It's a sad day. He's a good man. He did a lot of lectures. He did our communities, our service here. Basically, he didn't have to do what he did for that many years, but he had a belief, and he did what he had to do. I always say he spoke softly, but he carried a big stick. So being a biologist, it really helped us in our field. So my condolences to his family.
Lost a great
Definitely.
man.
We lost the good one, man. He was like, who is there to replace him? I don't know of anybody.
Not offhand. I mean, it's kind of hit and miss. Hey guys, somebody says how DNA could show what samples are not. Kim says I've read a lot of different DNA reports from different sources. Hi Lori, how are you? Chris, I really kind of wanted to get you on because of what you texted me about earlier. I wanted you to maybe elaborate about that. You know, you were talking about prints and stuff like that. So can you tell me kind of what happened?
Oh, we're heading out tomorrow, and we just had like recent snowfall, so I was just curious if you could cast in the snow.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. You can cast, but when the prints in the snow, like I was telling you, they get like, they're transient. They come and go. They wash away. There's so many issues. So you can use like silicone or like a sulfur cement. You can do certain things to try to preserve it, but in the snow, it's kind of hard because when we use plaster, I mean, we all know that heats up, and that's just going to cause the degradation of the print. So it's really kind of hit and miss.
Can I add something into this?
Sure, brother.
Try a can of that expanded foam. If you get
that's a good idea.
Good keep track, just because it just lays in the bottom and then expands out into that hole. And if the snow isn't really soft, it may catch that track. It's worth a try.
That's a good idea.
I mean, the foam might work. I mean, I never really tried that. That's interesting. Do you think it would push the sides of the print out though? I mean, you really wouldn't get any type of definition, do you think?
It depends on how heavy the snow is. If it's a good heavy snow, it's going to go to the weakest thing, which is up. So I would be hoping it would just fill in and then rise. You know, it's an experiment. That's the only thing I can tell you. You know, it's something you're going to have to try, just to experiment with and see if it works.
Maybe better off trying it on like a human footprint first, because if you find one in a field and you mess that up, you're going to be a little upset.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So where you guys
take a bunch of pictures?
Where are you guys going out to tomorrow?
We're finally getting into our 100-acre private property, so we're really excited about that. It's all old Indian land surrounded by state forest. It's pretty exciting in there.
Yeah, we've got some Indian land up near the Cattaraugus area, the reservation. It's kind of hard to get in there unless you really know somebody. I spoke with like I would say it's their historian on the Seneca Reservation, and they're kind of reserved to talk about things. You know what I mean? So to try to get in there and do any research, that's kind of why like Dan goes with me. We kind of stick to our own areas. But even before I met Dan, what was that, 2 years ago, I think, he had been researching Bigfoot, you know, or you can just tell people what you were doing, Dan, you know. He would kind of go into some certain areas, he said, and he was having his own encounters. If you want to tell the people.
This whole area is basically old Indian land. I'm from Cassadaga, New York, and it means water under the rocks, and it's a lake area. A lot of valleys. It's basically, we've got mounds and ridges that dot the whole area. Basically, it's where the Mississippi mound builders. It's like we're on their trail, and the area is just old. I saw my first Sasquatch when I was 7 years old, probably about a mile from where I live now. And I'm 47 now, so that's getting on about 40 years ago, maybe give or take a year. And I don't know. We live in a rural area, but I guess hollers is a good way to describe it. A lot of valleys, hills, but a lot of swamps too. It's almost like perfect area, but
a lot of hollers.
All my life I ran into different things and strange things, and I think it's they've been here forever. You know, this is nothing new.
You were wanting to say hollers and draws, weren't you?
He was.
Yeah. That would be the best way to describe it, I guess, to you guys. You know.
He got that from you. I'm actually glad he brought that up because our research area isn't far from a place you guys probably all heard of, Lilydale, New York, the spiritual capital of the world. So he kind of like Dan lives 5 minutes from there, and the research area, one of the research areas, is about 15 minutes from there. So as you know, I kind of read a lot of books. I mean, in my downtime, like in the wintertime, we can't really get out there. I mean, the roads will be blocked. We just can't get into these areas. I mean, unless you want a snowshoe or if you got a snowmobile maybe. But some of these books, like this one right here, hopefully everybody can see that one, the Paranormal Almanac, Western New York. There's a section in here. It breaks down all kinds of stuff. But there's a section in this book. They call it the 10 Classic Fury Freakies. Number 2, they have it listed. One morning, it said, this is what it says. In one morning, April 1907, a peddler and part-time politician, Mark Thomason, was deer hunting in the Cassadaga Swamp when he had what could have been a close encounter with a Bigfoot. Thomason studied the candidate at close range for many minutes. He said it was man-height, massive, stocky, and had reddish-brown hair. It may have been female. Right after that, in 1920, there's another incident from Cassadaga. Abe Fortes made a journal entry about following a set of large, broad, bare, human-like footprints for quite a ways in the mucky Cassadaga Swamp near a bone dry lane.
That is my backyard, Ryan. That's where Bone Dry Lane is, like right down the road from me, and that's the swamp they're talking about. That's I've been getting reports all my life, pretty much. That my neighbors have all seen them.
It says it's just south of today's Lilydale. To him, there seemed no possibility that they were human. After a while, he was starting to hope that he never caught up with whatever made them. This book for my viewers is pretty good if you kind of want to know our area. There's a few books I was going to share tonight just so you guys can get into them. That's one. There's another one here. I'll get into it in a little bit. But for a lot of new people or people that have been doing it for a while, this one here. This book was done by Robert Morgan. It's called Bigfoot Observer's Field Manual.
He's an awesome man.
What's that?
Oh, he's an awesome dude. I got to meet him last May at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. Got to talk to him for a while. Great man.
For sure. In this book, I tell you, it's pretty down to earth. I'm not going to go through it all, but I'll give you. He gives 9 steps here, which would be chapters. Step 1 is where to begin. Step 2 is scouting on wheels. And that's something that I always talk about because that's what we do sometimes. Step 3 is selecting and equipping base campsites. Step 4 is the art of research and security. Step 5, setting the stage for an encounter. Step 6, creating a provocative routine. And I talk about routines a lot, especially in habituation. Step 7, hair, feces, smells, tracks, and signs. 8 is basically how to invite a giant to tea. That must be like how to bring them in. Step 9 is and after your perfect encounter. So if you guys, I'm not promoting anything, but these are things that I followed when I kind of first started, getting into things and learning what I can do. And I try to tell people like when Dan first met me, I do a lot of road research and people are like, well, how do you do that? In our area, we have 2 separate sections that are some of the main areas that I'm actually going to have in the book. I'm going to have it broke down. The book, hopefully 60 days should be out. I'll let you guys know about all that, but you can read about that. And what I did is there's so much area to cover. You cannot cover it all. You know what I'm saying? So we would drive these dirt roads in certain areas. And what I would do prior is I would look at the map. And Chris kind of knows because I had talked with Chris about this. the way I had figured it and the way the sightings follow is they don't, the Sasquatch do not cross most of the time near fields. They stay on the hedgerows or where woods meets woods crossing the road. It's easier for them to stay hidden. So I went on the map and I looked for these places. Like, how could they get from this section over here and go 3 miles over here, 5 miles over here as the crow flies? So what I started doing is picking apart these sections. So as I would drive down the road, I'd have it marked on the map. Let's say section 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each section would be woods to woods, and I would go to those sections and try to locate breaks, structures, prints, anything that I could that would signify to like me that they were actually crossing there. You might, out of all 4 or 5 of those areas, you might find one area where they're crossing. But time after time, when I started doing that, it paid off. Like, we would see like areas where they were crossing, and then those are places where I might place trail cameras, do all kinds of things. So I don't know if you guys ever tried anything like that, but that really does work. So it's interesting. Chris, did you have any new developments, or you guys find anything? I know you said you had a new video out. If you want to tell people your channel, and same with Shane. I know Shaky, I don't know if you still do yours, but
yeah, we are Berkshire Bigfoot. The newest video is search for core area 2. We actually, I think people have seen it, found a handprint. Couldn't cast it. We've had gifts taken out our rocks at Larry's, wood knocks, all that. So we're very excited to get back into Larry's this year, because now we're set up. We've been only doing it for like 7-8 months now. So now we're set up at Larry's to, we got one core area. We know definitely one core area. And so now we're looking for the second one. So
yeah,
what state are you in?
Go ahead, Dan.
What state are you in?
We're in Northwest Connecticut.
Have there
why
been?
don't you tell everybody? What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Berkshire Bigfoot.
Berkshire Bigfoot, and if you subscribe to Berkshire Bigfoot, you get a free subscription to Ozark Mountain Sasquatch on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you get to see Shane's jars.
Yeah, that's interesting. You found a print, because I know Shane had found a print a while back. If you want to talk about that.
Handprint, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have this this rock outcrop. It's kind of a small overhang ledge. And we're finding 9.5 inch tracks going up to it, and little holes that are being dug all around it, and the sticks would still be in the holes. One of the days we went out, it had rained for 2 days straight. It quit raining the night before we went out, about 12 to 1 o'clock. And we got out there about 6:30, 7 a.m. in the morning, and these holes had been dug fresh since the rain. There's no way they could have been dug before the rain. The rain would have washed them out, and the sticks that they were dug with were still in there. So we started kind of keeping an eye on that particular spot and visiting it every time we would go out. And we think that an adult and a young one has been bedding up underneath it. There's a couple big flat rocks where every time we go out, there's new rotted wood and bark up on these big flat rocks underneath it. No way it can get there by itself. And so we've been setting up some things, to try to get prints in that spot and whatnot. And yeah, we went out, and we went out 2 weeks in a row, or 2 weekends in a row, I should say. And the first weekend we got pretty decent tracks going up to it again, and the second weekend we got a really nice big fat handprint, and we casted it, and we met Dr. Meldrum down in Hanobi this last year, and took him the handprint and our footprint castings, with the hopes that he would verify they are what we pretty well know they are. And he loved he loved our foot castings, and he was really surprised at our hand casting because there's I think he said that ours was the 13th hand cast that he knew of, and I was kind of questionable when we found it and after we casted it, but after watching Meldrum look over it and tell us why he thought it was the real deal, it was kind of mind-boggling. I mean, it was a total lesson session listening to him tell us why it was real. But we have a lot of things going on the property that we research on. It's nearly every time we go out, we come back with something. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous at times. So
did you guys didn't they find a handprint like with the Skookum cast, or was that just the leg and?
Man, it seems like they may have.
I thought it was just like a fit.
Forearm.
Well, because I was going to say you could try to compare it, you know, with your print. I was actually looking to see if I could find a picture of your print in my log here, and I was going to share it with the viewers because I know I had a copy of it sitting somewhere, but good luck trying to find it on a short notice like that.
I got to see the picture of Chris's handprint, or what we think was a handprint, and I think if he would have got to cast it, I think that he would have been pleasantly surprised because the fingertips had looked like they had dug down, or not dug down, but stuck down into the dirt itself. And you know, he had some people telling him it wasn't a handprint, but as soon as I looked at it, I was pretty convinced it was.
Really?
Yeah,
It's in the new video, the video footage of it.
He has nightmares about not being able to cast it.
Yeah, I've had two opportunities. I had a 14.5-inch footprint and a handprint that I've failed to cast because I am a rookie and I make stupid mistakes.
Hey, if we were all rookies at one time, it took me I don't know how many times to cast prints to figure out what I was doing right and doing wrong. There, it's almost an art trying to do it. But let me ask you this: were you able to correlate anything with those footprints in that hand cast, like what it was doing, why it would have put its hand down, like kind of like a storyline?
Who's that, Shane or me?
That's you.
They were in two different spots, the hand and the footprint. I think the handprint, what it was doing was actually squatting down and then use its hand to get up and take off quick, because that's the way the fingertips were dug into the ground. It looked like it gripped onto the ground to get a push off, and it took off. That's my
now
analysis of that.
Was this close to a road, or was it deep off? Or
I'd say it was probably about 1.5 miles in from the road.
Now let me ask you guys this: like, I know you guys do research, and I know Dan too. Dan can pitch in. Do you find sign like close to roads like we do?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Have you ever chose to just get out and follow it or anything, or just is it kind of like you drive by and just say, "Oh, look it, there it is." You know what I mean?
Down here, if you do that and you get caught on property, you may get shot.
Yeah.
It's that bad, huh?
I mean, in some areas.
I've got a friend, Ryan, had hooked me up with, named Colleen, and she's got this eye for structures, and she'll pick them up on the side of the road. We'll get out, and a lot of it's on local land or off an interstate, maybe like I'd say 86 is one area she finds them, and then one place is right in Jamestown, right on the border, going out Baker Street Extension, where this big city kind of filters off into, field and into the rural area. But I don't know. I can't pick them up like she can, but it's amazing sometimes where she'll get these, she'll take a picture, and it's almost like they're putting a road sign up, or they're hanging around by that area watching cars or something, but there's a lot of activity that it's amazing more people aren't seeing them do it. It's, you know.
Yeah, Dan's actually talking about this lady. She had contacted me. She lives in near Panama, New York. And there's a lot of things. I've got a lot of reports out of Salamanca, Allegheny, Panama, you know, Gowanda, things like that, from people that'll call up, want to be anonymous or whatever it is. But she was like, you know, I'm having some issues. I don't really know what to do. I guess they were really like frequenting her property. At one point, Dan was telling me, I think she said the same thing also, that, what is it, her stepbrother or her son went to the cabin and a tree got torn down?
No, her son actually moved into this cabin in Panama. She was down in Little Valley, which is about, you know, it's down more towards, well, you know where Little Valley is, a little more to the east, I guess.
Right.
But he lives in it's a 50-year-old cabin, and it's about a half mile out in the woods on about 3,000 acres of land. It's a nice dense chunk, but it was abandoned for about 6 years before he moved in. And when he moved in, he had to cut down a bunch of stuff, and the family has basically been living there this whole time. They had to put up cameras around the cabin because they were literally coming up and like laughing in the windows in the summertime. She saw one, I think, in Thanksgiving, right before dusk. One ran right in front of her while she was out there visiting the grandkids, but they're not moving or anything. They're there all winter. The first year, he had an issue plowing at 3 a.m, and he must have been waking up the family because this thing screamed at him. He got stuck. He was trying to shovel it out. The thing screamed at him from about 20 feet. And he ended up shooting his Glock into the ground and ended up not having any problems the rest of the night. But when he went out the next day, the thing had actually circled him and been watching, like, probably, man, too close for comfort. But they're out there all year long. They get activity. It's they haven't moved out at all. There's that glyph that I showed you a little while back.
Right.
All around the cabin, they find little stuff like that.
We got a new joiner here. What's up, buddy? Is that Dave?
Yep. Hey, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Did you have to pull over?
All right. Yep. I'm in a Lowe's parking lot right now.
Oh, wow.
California traffic, man. It's a nightmare.
That bad, huh?
It's horrifying.
So,
hey, man, sorry to cut you here real quick. I'm gonna have to jump off here, guys. I got a birthday party to attend.
Happy birthday!
My youngest is turning 8, so I'm gonna go pull his pants down and spank his butt 8 times real hard and make him a man.
Awesome.
There you go.
Thanks, buddy.
Good talking to you guys, and I'll catch up later.
Later, buddy.
Later.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey.
If you don't mind, I want to say two things. Matter of fact,
sure.
The first thing, I'm going to jump back to what Chris was talking about, how he found that handprint. You know, that kind of what he described made me think that thing was squatting down watching a deer or something, and then once it realized it had something it could go after, it shot off after it. You know, that was the image I had in my head where he described that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That makes perfect sense. Could have been hunting.
Yeah.
Like
in
a
really.
3-point stance.
Yep. And then when a deer got in close enough or passed, it just lunged and went on the deer.
Yeah, kind of like a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
It's funny.
The other thing. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Get your point out. Go ahead, because I'll tell you after.
No, because I'm gonna change the subject to the structure thing you were talking about.
Okay, it's funny you say like a lineman, because this is in the book. This goes along with my second encounter. This is actually what got me into this field. I had the first encounter while I was metal detecting, the second encounter with a friend while we were metal detecting, and when we seen this thing, we had come out. You know, it's in the I've Seen Bigfoot documentary. They did a recreation. So we're coming out from the two sides of the woods to the big trail. When we come out, you know, he's pointing and telling me, and we look up, and this thing, it was in that linebacker position. I share this whole thing in the writing, but it was down, like, I mean, I don't know how to best explain it, but it seemed like it was in that crouching position where it was a stalking position. It was down low like that. So that would lend credence to the possibility with your handprint there, Chris, because when this thing stood up, it was just gigantic. But I just wanted to point that out because he said something about that football position.
Yeah,
when I've watched in like your videos where there's like the bunch of them though, they tend to get in that stance. I notice when you see them taking off, they'll be erect at first, but they get in that stance, and then you can see them jut out to kind of do their crawl or their four-legged walk, you know. So
it's almost like a hunch.
I think that's a good position.
But with the hips, like on a bear, the bear hips. If somebody tried to say it's a bear hips are higher. In some of the photos that I shared, I know the video you're talking about, where the one goes up and over the log, and you can see the hip movement. The hips sit lower on this, kind of like a chimp would. You know, they're down like that. But that's a good point. And Steve, what were you going to say?
I keep muted because of the animals. Talking about that structure thing, you know, I live on top of a mountain here, and our roads, I'm a mile off the road, but you get out to asphalt, there's no lines, there's no shoulders. And it's basically woods on both sides, you know, but you have several houses, not many, but a few houses. And the other day, my wife and I were coming back, and there's a rock structure on the side of the house, on the side of the road, just a stack of rocks. And woods on both sides. You know, what's the point of that? Who's the hell is going to stop and stack rocks on the side of a road? It makes no sense. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot. I didn't see a Bigfoot do it, but it's in the middle of nothing. It's kind of weird.
I've had minimal rock clacking, but I've had more interaction with rock clacking in a area off of Meadows Road, we call it. There's like this valley, and the valley's probably only 400 to 500 yards off the road, which is unreal. Not a road, but a dirt road. And we've sat down there quite a few times and got a lot of responses with the rock clacking and things like that. Somebody just actually had a video, and they were showing, maybe it was Shane, where he had a big boulder in a dry creek bed, and something had rocks smashed on top of it and was kind of like grinding and pounding on it. And I said that was funny because I had seen that also in one of my areas.
My only issue with the rock clacking is raccoons do it and otters do it. That's my only issue with that. You know what I mean? It's I guess the way I look at it is, if there's any possible way it can be something other than a Bigfoot, I have to rule it out. But you know, like, well, usually we don't get activity here until spring, but 3 days ago, I heard two distinct wood knocks come from down in the bottom of our little valley here, and couldn't figure that one out because they're not usually around this time of year.
A little off the subject from the rock clacking itself, as far as like that, there's a spot down the road from me where there's kind of a glacial erratic, a bigger boulder that sits on top of this hill. It's kind of nicely shaded. You kind of have to look for it. But we find walnuts out there, and it's a posted land. The people will not, you don't go on that land unless you belong. But something sits there with another rock and smashes walnuts on top of this rock and leaves piles of them. Now, I've never heard a raccoon smashing walnuts, you know, that's I hear, you know, I kind of wonder sometimes if when you're hearing it, if not a mistake a little bit at first, or, you know, right, they're just using it as a tool, you know.
I was just reading some of the comments here. People were talking about a sighting. Brian Neely says, Saratoga Springs in-house eyewitness to an 8-foot plus 400 to 500 pounds dog man as a deputy sheriff of Virginia. Something. Thanks. That's interesting. I was just going through all this. Hey, how you doing?
I definitely believe they use tools. I definitely believe they use tools. I believe they use rocks to smash acorns and walnuts or whatever they can find that that's difficult for them to crack or whatever for whatever reason. But I definitely believe they use sticks.
I've thought about
primate.
I've thought about for a gift for gifting, like leaving a tomahawk or leaving an axe out to see if it comes up missing. Leaving an area where you know they are by a structure and see if they leave it or see if it ends up coming up missing, after a while. I just wonder if they would know enough to take that axe and use it, or
A week later, somebody calls in a report of a Bigfoot chasing them with an axe.
Yeah. It's going to turn up in someone's back a week later.
Right. Sometimes you got to try new things. But Steve, you brought up a good point about the sticks, because when I first started this, we had a situation where we were putting out apples in like 2013 or something like that. And we had found what I call a gate, your standard gate. But where I'm finding the gates is kind of on the edge perimeters of their area for some reason. So on this gate, we would put these apples and we'd put up cameras. And I'm like, we're going to catch whatever's taking it. The apples would disappear. We wouldn't catch anything on camera. And I'm like, I'm kind of distraught after a while. So I nailed the apples to the tree, figuring whatever was taking it, it would have to use more energy, more force, more time to get that apple off that tree or off that gate. And about 100 photos later, I finally realized that you said that they use tools, right? Well, as far as the sticks go, I kept finding branches that would be like this in front of my camera. So I was like, could it be the wind? So what I did is I moved some of the cameras to a really low position, like 1 foot off the ground. And I was finding these cameras or these sticks would come from like the edge of the camera, and they'd like go like this, and it would set the camera off. So I was wondering if they were using the sticks to set the cameras off so they could steal the apples. Because when you got a camera, 1 foot off the ground and there's no branches near it or anything, and the highest, the branches start 5-6 foot up on a tree, there should be no type of a stick coming in front of your camera kind of doing this. So I talked to a bunch of people like Shane and a few other people, and they were noticing the same thing. So they may have that ability to set cameras off. So I think
no, I was just saying we had the same exact thing you're just describing. We had our trail cameras are set up to take 3 pictures and then film. Well, on the first picture, the branch is in one position, the second picture in the same position, but in the third position, all of a sudden that branch is down 6 inches. And then when it turns on, it's still in that position from when it's filming. So something pulled that branch down to make that camera go. I agree with you that 100%. I've seen that a few times in our trail cameras.
Yeah, definitely. And it was really intriguing because I wasn't correlating anything. I thought it was just the wind or whatever the situation was until I actually put it on a tree that had like no branches around it. And the standard branches would start 5 or 6 foot up on this tree. And I said, you know what, if I get these pictures again, there's something up. So at like 3 a.m, I know nobody's in this location using a branch to set off a game camera like that. It was really odd. I also had another situation. This is before Dan joined with us with our research. We used to take these balls. Do you remember, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, they had a ball where you would shake it and it would light multicolored.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we would use those. Well, on this one occasion in the same location, we had it hanging and it was like right by the bowl there. This will be all in the book too, but we left it there figuring they would touch it or play with it and whatever. About the second time we had gone back, that ball was gone. The twine was taken off the tree and everything. And I was sitting there kind of like baffled for a second. Like a whole grid search of this area. I mean, 300 yards by 300 yards looking for this clear ball the size of a baseball. So we went all the way down what's known as Dibble Hill to a field, and we didn't find it. On the way back coming to the habituation area, we just happened to run across it. It was about 100 yards from the original habituation area, hanging on a tree. And we had no idea what to make of this. We left it there. To this day, it should still be there. And Dan, if you ever get a chance, remind me of that, and I'll show you. It's kind of where the parking area is to the left. It's up in there. And that ball somehow 100 yards went from one situation to another, and it's hanging in that tree. I don't know if it disturbed them or they didn't like the colors or what, but they actually moved it. Somebody moved it, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't a person.
Wanted to play with it someplace a little safer.
Right. I shared a couple books earlier, but I know there's more viewers. There's 30 or something viewers. Here's one book that I'd like to share with you. You guys can read that. That's by Robert Morgan. The other one was the Paranormal Almanac of Western New York, kind of where I'm from. It's got all kinds of ghostly stuff and talks about Bigfoot from 1907. Here's another Bigfoot book, New York and New England. We spoke earlier. I know a lot of people pay attention to paranormal things also while they do Bigfoot research, and it's very hard to correlate everything that happens to you. But I found this intriguing. I'll read this quick clip it here. It's called the geomagnetic hypothesis. A parapsychologist, Dr. Alan Vaughan, Peter Gutilla have proposed a fascinating theory about the origin of Bigfoot. They postulate that it could be linked to the Earth's geomagnetic field. Vaughan and Gutilla claim the sightings of strange creatures, UFOs, and ESP increase when the geomagnetic field decreases in activity. And it goes on and on, a few pages here, but it's an interesting read how a parapsychologist, somebody that's, credited could come up with this type of idea. So if you get a chance, get that book and you guys can read a little bit.
Hey, let me ask y'all everybody's opinion here about something.
Sure.
I got a bunch of chickens, and I have some leftover chicken wire. And I got this idea of making a basket, an apple basket trap. And I got it because I used to be a waterman down in Southern Maryland. And I got thinking of the crab pot, where you got a crab goes in and can't get back out.
Right.
Now, if I made something that had a hole in it where something could reach, it had to reach up into it to get the apple, that wire would catch hairs. You know what I'm saying?
Say that again.
The thing I'm talking about making is almost like a crab pot where you would put apples or something in the middle of it, and it would have a hole where it had to reach up through, but I would leave jagged wires that would snag hairs as it went in and out.
It definitely would work. That's kind of like what we did. We basically just built a box. I had 4 of them. They were like 34 inches deep, and I wrapped it in chicken wire. I zip tied it all, and we would leave things in there. But in the front of the box, there was an opening. I don't know, 6 by 4 or whatever. Nothing, crazy. Yeah. And what we were hoping is in the front there, instead of putting nails or something sharp, because we didn't want to injure them. We wanted them to continue to come back. Right. So we took, what a shoe shine brush looks like, the big brush. So we nailed them to the inside of the face. So when you reach in, it could grab something and pull it out and essentially leave hair on all those hard bristles. And we did on numerous occasions get a lot of hair samples, which we did send off to New York, which I'm still waiting for. I understand that, the person I sent him to at NYU, he's very backed up, so I understand. But I'd like to get some results. I know one result he did give me. I have it in my messages. One of them was canid, but he couldn't tell me from what canine family or anything like that. So, but it would work. I mean, that's the only reason we went with like the shoe shine brush in the front is because we didn't want them to bleed, because let's face it, if you piss them off, they're not going to come back. Most likely, they're probably going to break your trap and it's done.
Yeah.
Chris, have you tried any habituation, or Dave, have you tried any habituation type techniques?
Go ahead, Chris, if you want.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, bud.
I haven't. I'm sure I want to do that yet. Like I me and Ryan were talking. You remember this, Ryan? How you were kind of letting me know kind of your history from starting and where you've ended up and what it took to get there, kind of your experiences. And I think I mentioned that I'm kind of starting from a certain position, and as I'm exposed to new things, it'll, obviously progress what I'm trying to find out naturally. But from what I've seen from habituation, it's not, I think it can be very useful for me. I'm not to a point yet where I would feel comfortable doing it. And it's as simple as that. I think it's great. There's obviously some wonderful success stories with that. And I hope people continue to do it. But for myself, I'm not ready for it. I think maybe at some point, if the opportunity presents itself, I would do it. The opportunity may present itself not too far off, but that's kind of where I'm at.
That's understandable. It took me a while to do it when I first started, but the habituation, I see a lot of people just habituate, and it's kind of like a thing they do. I'll leave a gift and then I'll go back in a week. I'll leave this and I kind of set goals to where it was more like a project. I said, I'm going to set, I'm going to do this for 8 weeks or whatever it was. And I want to go 4 days a week, same time, same place. And that's kind of what I did. So it worked out because I ended up getting some photos of possible, Bigfoot out of the whole situation. So it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I would go at 6 p.m., same time, same channel, same place. And I built this rapport, this trust, and it kept working. And that's how I was getting this audio, and that's how I was getting certain things. And people were blown away by it because they're like, that's decent stuff. And I feel that you have to have a trust with them when you want to get this close. It's not that, you hear the stories, well, they'll eat you or they'll come after you. But it was a little different. I think they're all different in different areas because it worked out right. It worked out great for us. And I was actually contemplating doing that this year because I want to focus a lot on audio because I think that can not prove, but it's really good evidence. And you can start, having people look at it and experts look at it. I mean, we've already got an expert in the field that really looks at tracks. I mean, we already know what that's about. So it's kind of to the point where I want to try new things, but I guess you kind of get hooked on when you really get good evidence, good audio, good tracks or something, you grasp onto that and you latch onto that. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to replicate that to be able to have it happen again. But our biggest problem is the wind turbines that they put in. Dan knows they tore up a ton of habitat. So I'm hoping that this year isn't going to be like last year where I have to go everywhere to try to pinpoint their core locations. I'm sorry, Chris, I think I cut you off too.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say that I think what you said about being able to you find something and you latch onto it and you want to do it again and again. That's a good thing. That's exactly what we need, and it's part of the whole scientific part of doing this is being able to do something, getting a certain result, and being able to repeat it and getting the same result over and over again. That's going to be a big part of proving this stuff ultimately.
That's the general rule of science. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what science is, repeatability. Right. And the thing is, we are in a way, without us even knowing, without you even trying, you're doing some type of scientific research because you're going into the same areas repeatedly, trying to get those same results. And
right,
that's essentially.
How long have you been researching?
Who are you?
Me?
Yeah. How long you been researching?
Let's see.
2
I
years?
did a couple little things before, like in 2012, 13, 14. I was in Idaho, but it was very, very passive. I didn't do anything very consistently. And then in 2016, I got more serious about it. So since, I mean, not long at all. It's been probably around July, June of 2016. So
So
I'd
how
say
long was that?
consistently.
So, all right, what, 6 months maybe?
No, well, it's been
6,
a
7
year,
months?
about a year and a half.
Year? Okay, say year and a half.
Year and a half.
What
Yeah,
is the
not
difference
very long.
between somebody that has been researching a year and a half and somebody that's been researching for 30 years?
Just experience.
Well, the experience, yeah, definitely the experience. You're going to be exposed to different stuff. I don't know if I don't know. Hopefully the
There's no
passion doesn't
difference.
drop after 30 years.
There's no difference, is what I'm trying to get at. You know
Okay.
the same thing, pretty much, that person that's been doing it for 30 years knows. We
On
don't
this
know what it
part.
is. We don't know what it really is. We don't know what it does. We don't know its habitat. We don't know a lot of shit. We don't know nothing.
Yep.
And that's the thing. It doesn't matter if you've been doing it a year or 50 years. Nobody's proven anything. We're all in the same boat together.
I agree.
You know, and to hear people talk about, well, you haven't been doing it long enough, and whatnot. You know, that's a bunch of crap. Nobody's been able to prove anything.
I feel the same way, but at the same time, my knowledge of what I've done and what I've learned from them, because that's what I try to. Like I say, books are great. Books are great to read,
Sure
but
they are.
the way you're implementing it in the field, and ultimately, all your answers are going to come from what they teach you in the woods, what the Bigfoot teach you, what you learned from them, hands-on. That's the way to go. And the way I feel, I had corresponded with Chris a lot before he really got started. And I see him use some of the techniques that we talked about, and it's paying off for him. So in my mind, I've talked with Shane about it too. I think some of the techniques are working. Not that I know more than Chris or Chris knows more than Dave or anything like that, but the general experience, learning from what they teach you and how they move, and if you can share that to other people, I think helps a lot.
That's the key right there. Sharing the information and not putting others down for what they have found or bashing them or nitpicking them.
Exactly.
We need to come together and share what we have. That's the whole thing about my show. I put all my opinion to the side, and I want to interview researchers because we are missing something. And if somebody over here on this side of the country says, well, this, and this, somebody on the East Coast may say, well, you know what? That happened to me too. And then maybe they between the two of them, they catch something that one or the other was missing, and it does bring it closer and maybe even find an answer.
Yep.
And this whole community it really needs to come together and work together if we want to put this together, if we want to solve this mystery, because that's what it is, a big ass mystery still.
And that's imperative. I don't think we're going to progress and get anywhere significant in our lifetimes unless that happens. Two things in my mind. One is coming together, exactly like you said. It's going to be, in my mind, kind of a central depository of information, videos, sounds, just everything, where each and every one of us can go, no matter where we are in the country or the world, and we can pull off of that information. We can build on top of what other people have contributed, and it is
right.
And it is communicating with each other. It's doing things like this. And then the second thing is, I don't know how this would be done, but it's changing perception. The perception on this subject is a huge hindrance, and what I mean by that is you cannot watch anything on any kind of mainstream mass media without, and someone's talking about Sasquatch, it's any story that's read, no matter what the capacity or how serious it is, it's done so while the person that's delivering that information is giggling like a fucking idiot, excuse my language. And it's very frustrating. And all of us have experienced this. I promise you, and that is telling somebody, somebody that you've known for your whole life, somebody significant, and you're telling them, hey, Sasquatch are real. This is what happened to me. And they look at you like you've gone batshit crazy.
Yep.
And that really makes me mad. And that has to do with the perception. So if the perception changes and people can at least accept that this is possible, then it's going to get some progression. And by the way, just real quick, I was talking to Ryan about this yesterday. Somebody that helped change that perception that we lost, obviously, a couple of days ago, John Bindernagel, he was a very important figure, and you don't realize it until that person is gone. It's only been a couple of days, but we all realize the significance of having somebody like that to advocate for this species and the discovery of these things. So it's a huge loss, and I just want to comment on that. It really bummed me out. So anyway,
that's good. It really is a hindrance. I mean, when you lose somebody like that, that's advocating for us, and actually getting out in the field and searching. And like we said earlier, I don't think anybody's going to fill his void. He had a big footprint because a lot of people paid attention to what he had to say, and for good reason.
Right. I think he reminds me of a combination of a lot of different, professors and teachers I've had in my life, and it's probably the same for everybody. He's just a very likable, very knowledgeable, very systematic guy when it comes to this information. He was able to articulate this subject and pieces of this subject very well, and that's very important to change perception and transfer information and have the layman all the way up to the double PhD understand the content. So it's huge, and he's going to be missed for sure. But
exactly, a true scientist. He wasn't stuck in that. One of the few people that isn't stuck into that I don't know what you want to call it, that track way, seeing things that if it doesn't fit our mold, he was willing to get outside of the box. Yeah. That's rare in that field.
It is.
That's kind of why we talked about Standing. When I shared Todd Standing, there was a new article by the Global News just talking about him suing the Canadian government, and spoke with a good friend. Actually, she just messaged me, Claudia Ackley. She was going to try to hop on, but she is in the woods right now, unfortunately. Her and Todd are probably out together.
Yep.
She is going to be suing, or she is suing. She went live yesterday. She's doing the same thing Todd is doing, building, a case and trying to go against the government. I mean, I think it is a good thing, but I think they're going to need a lot more people. They do have some biologists, and obviously Meldrum's going to testify on their behalf, or not their behalf, but actually his credibility on what he's found with footprints and et cetera. But I think it's going to take a lot more people. What I would have liked to have seen, even though researchers don't want to do it, they're going to nag against everything. Well, you shouldn't do that. Well, then what the hell are we trying to do? We're actually speaking up. We're actually trying to do things. I don't care what evidence Todd Standing has or this guy over here. If we all stand together, the courts are going to eventually say, well, what the hell are we going to do? What if all of us filed a lawsuit in each one of our states? Just say that. And we got 100 researchers to back us and do the same thing and show evidence and have biologists or Dr. Meldrum testify. I mean, essentially, they're kind of going to – eventually something's going to happen. Either the people filing something's going to happen to them because they're going to try to make this go away, or they're going to say, all right, we'll postpone your case. We'll leave it open. But in the meantime, maybe we'll set you up with such and such, this biologist or this state anthropologist, and take him into these regions and try to prove it. Either way, it's kind of like it might be a win-win for us.
I don't get what the end game is in this, though. Are they trying to protect the species? Are they trying to get the government to come out and say, okay, well, then it exists?
Oh, I mean, yeah. They're trying to say that it exists and protect it.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're trying to say that it exists and to protect it. So what would the government hurt by saying, okay, we'll say they're real and we'll protect them? Even if it wasn't, what would it hurt?
Yeah, that I agree with.
Well, the government just kind of can't come out. You know, that goes against all science. That'd be pseudoscience. They can't just say, it exists without like DNA or body. And Standing's in the paper that was written about Standing, it says he has DNA evidence, which me and Shane said that was the first we actually heard of that.
But the government could take $700,000 from autism research and to figure out what Armstrong said on the moon. You know, our government does some ass backwards shit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they kind of do just what benefits them.
Yeah, I don't know. You know,
I mean, I think about this. I live in New York. There's this. New York doesn't recognize Bigfoot as any type of species. So, but Whitehall has its own township, and they have credences to Bigfoot. You can't shoot one. They have their own little laws.
Right.
So now, what if somebody went and filed, let's say, a lawsuit in a place like Whitehall or any of these other towns that believe in Bigfoot and have their own little laws, and say I went to Whitehall and I filed in Whitehall, would my chances be better of winning in Whitehall opposed to Rochester or some small hick town, because they already have their laws in place? And then if you lose, you say, well, how do you do that? Because you have laws in place. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a win-win or win-lose. I know I'm going to follow and pay attention.
It's stacked against it. Just from the get-go, I don't think it's going to come out. They're not going to admit to it. If they were going to, it would have been back in the 60s, because now there's a whole lot bigger of explain, a whole lot more to, a lot more explaining to do, Lucy, if they do come out and say it. If they come out and admit they know it, then that means they've known for the last 50, 30, how many years, anybody, or haven't, so there's a lot of liability that they will not ever fess up.
But think about it. Nobody's ever produced this type of material in court, whether it's videos, whether it's, Meldrum or other biologists testifying. We've all just sat back and kept saying the government's not doing anything with our arms crossed. Some people get biologists to come in the field, but then that biologist says, hey, I seen it, but I'm not saying nothing. You know what I mean? So nobody's ever went to
can't make money on it. There's no taxing Bigfoot. So whether the government does, if the government doesn't make money, it doesn't care.
Well, hell yeah, they
it's
can
like
make
marijuana. That's where I'm at.
Well, you bring that up. But let me say this: marijuana. I don't care what state has legalized it. Marijuana is totally illegal and a class 2. It is a class 2 drug, which is even registered at the federal government worse than cocaine and heroin. State cannot overrule the federal government's law, but yet they have made it legal in their states, and the government's turned their head. And so. They can do what the hell they want to do. They just choose not to do it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Not to get off topic at all, Chris. What have you had a chance to read that book by Christopher Noel?
No.
He put out a field guide structure book a while back, and it's kind of interesting because I was going to ask you guys what's your main type of structures that you're finding. Is that, and he goes through this book and he's got a breakdown of I think it's the 50 main types of structures. There's not a ton of information, but it's just kind of broke down different types of structures, land markers, the way they're positioned, stuff like that. You get a chance to check that out. I mean, like I said, in the wintertime in New York, it's hard to get out, so I got to read.
Yeah, I actually talked to Chris on Messenger the other day, and I'm actually waiting for an autographed copy of his new book and that book. And that's funny that you mentioned that.
How'd you get him to send you one of those autographed?
I contacted him on Messenger, Facebook. Yep.
I'm going to have to reach out to him and complain. Yeah,
Dave,
I think he wrote a couple sentences about me in there, so I kind of feel entitled to one now.
Dave's upset.
Just mine, Chris.
But I guess he's having problems with his publishing or something. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. What is your thought on Sasquatch using fire?
No. I'm sorry. I could just be.
No.
They got too much hair on their arms.
The Indians said they did. The Indians said they did. The Indians, there's several legends of the Indians talking about the mountain giants using it. Now, I don't believe they do myself. I've never seen anything, but
You
the
find
Indians.
you find charred wood all over the place where they're at.
That's true.
It's interesting. Here would be my theory. So we've come to think that they clack rocks together.
Start the fire.
Exactly. Over time, even by mistake, over time, if they're clacking rocks, maybe something caught on fire. So I'm not saying they do or they don't, but it is a possibility. You're getting that spark and that friction. If it does happen, I don't know. I've never seen it. I can't prove it. It's a possibility.
Wasn't it one of the first sightings in the United States where a guy, I forget, he was a writer for some, he had been hunting somewhere in California, and he had seen footprints by his camp while he was out, and he waited one night, apparently walked off, waited in the bushes, and he saw two Sasquatch come up the sticks out and kind of making a light show with it, catching, doing circles, taking trails, and that happened back in the late 1800s, I think.
Brown dwarf online says that they can use fire.
I don't think so. I think maybe they did in the past. Maybe there's some truth to those Indian legends. I don't ignore all that stuff anymore because it's obviously has a place with the stuff we're finding now. But my thought is what I've seen a lot out in the field is, and I mean, this could be very close to human development, or it could be literally in the middle of frickin' nowhere. On and in structures, I find, and it doesn't matter where it is, how far away it is, I find like a structure with, on top of it, there'll be like a bottle of pop, an empty bottle of pop, a candy bar wrapper, and then you go inside of the structure, and there'll be like two pieces of partially burnt wood, right? Like somebody put a campfire out and left a little bit of wood, and they go and put it in the structures. I found this very, very consistently on a lot of these structures, and it's like a candy bar wrapper, some kind of human, whatever, a plastic bag, and they set it on top or just, and my thought was, the impression that I got, and it could be completely wrong, is that they were doing it to throw us off, to make us think that it's not them, that it's one of us. And there's nothing I have to back that up. It's just the way that stuff keeps turning up. The fact that I see around and inside a lot of structures, I've seen tons of like rings of rocks, right, with a couple pieces of burnt wood in it, or something in different capacities set up to look like a fire pit, like humans do out in the woods. Like maybe they've seen it and mimic it, but it's just the impression. It's just what came to me one time when I was trying to figure it out, and it's a very odd thing. I don't know if you guys have seen the same thing or not, but I saw it in certain areas very consistently, and it was kind of weird. So
I have a person online here, Vicky online. She said crows have been seen to utilize heat to melt plastic bottles in order to get food and water. That's interesting. Brown Dwarf says, I've been finding unused fire pits around structures.
There you go.
Do you guys remember the Marble Mountain footage?
Yes.
From years ago, it was like, I think, weren't they maybe mentally handicapped kids or?
Yeah, it was church kids out on outing.
Yep.
Well, that you could tell everything was broken. There was a shelter there made with all broken stuff, and in the fire pit pit. I think there was either a fire pit there or something resembling it, but it wasn't a fire pit per se, or it hadn't been caught on fire. But there was something there it resembled a regular camp. You know, it was weird.
Well, they found that structure.
They found like the campsite, and there was like the structure or a little shelter thing.
Yeah, it was a hut.
And then there was like a pit. And it wasn't, I don't know if it wasn't burnt or if it was just stacked like it was a fire, but it wasn't too long after they looked up and saw the big male, or, you know,
whatever,
raising hell.
And see, that brings up a good point, because we could have the best video in the world and people are still going to try to debate it. And that's the thing. That's why I'm trying to bring people together. I don't care what Chris or Dan or Dave or Shaky or Shane or all the guys that I know and talk to, I don't care what their beliefs are. I want to share it. I want to say, hey, tell me what you found. Not just a video. Tell me how you correlated that. Tell me how, you know, teach me. If I don't know, teach me. If you don't know, I'll teach you if I know something. Not teach you, but in essence, just expand our knowledge. Because if we don't come together and talk more about this, that's the thing. Everybody's all about YouTube and sharing videos. It's great. I share my tidbits along the way. I share, you know, a lot of people learn from it, which is good. But you gotta, I mean, a lot of people don't even keep a journal. You know, that's like essentially that's kind of what's in this first book that I completed. I kind of share a lot of things that I did, like what happened on outings, and people are probably going to be surprised what it entails. You know, I think if we don't share, because it's a video and people see a video and the first thing is it's this and that, but I get it. I mean, I'm over the blurriness. That's why I don't comment online a lot, because I stick to the people that I know. I stick to the people that I can trust, because you don't know anymore. You don't know who's doing what. And, you know, when you got a small circle of 10 or 15 people that you can count on, that's kind of what matters. And if Chris comes and tells me something, or Dave or Dan or whoever it is, one of my people that I know, I can take that for, you know, what it's worth. I don't have to take it with a grain of salt and say, I don't believe that guy. You know,
let me share something with you. And if I repeat this story again, I apologize if you've heard it. But you got it in my head now from what you were saying. My great grandfather was born in the 1800s and was a lawyer and a state senator. This was a well-educated man. My grandfather was born in 1905, 2 years before the invention of the airplane. When my grandfather was a little boy, his father caught him reading a comic book about Buck Rogers or whatever it was, some kind of outer space thing, took it from him and threatened to whip his ass. And my grandfather said, well, why can't I read it? And his father replied, because this shit will never happen. Man will never go into outer space. It will never go to the moon. It's a bunch of crap. My great-grandfather died in 1946. In 1968, wasn't it? We went to the moon. We went into outer space. Just because a person can't comprehend it happening doesn't mean it can't happen or won't happen.
Yes, sir.
You see where I'm going with this, right? So if somebody says, I've seen a Bigfoot get out of a UFO, pick some berries, and get back in a UFO, I can't call him a liar. I wasn't there to see it. You know, how can I call a man a liar? Whether I believe him or not, I guess that's a personal thing. But it doesn't mean it didn't happen or it can't happen. Just because I can't comprehend it not being real doesn't mean it didn't happen.
And we all should know that better than most, because at some point, every single one of us saw our first crazy thing or had a sighting or an encounter or whatever, and went to go tell somebody, and we all remember the reactions we got and still get. So I have that ingrained in my mind, and I will never just flat out discount somebody that's trying to tell me something rationally, right? If they're acting crazy and they're all hammered or something, that's a different story. But generally speaking, right, if somebody tells me something, I can't say it didn't happen. I'm not going to disbelieve them. I'm going to give them the opportunity, just like I didn't get from everyone I've told. So
see, I feel the same way, and only because it's happened to me. When I experience paranormal things and things that I can't explain in the woods, I have to keep open-minded. I have to pay attention to this whole gamut. If I don't, I'm being closed-minded, saying that I know what this is and I know how to go about researching it, and that's not the case. If there's paranormal things that happen with this, I got to figure it out. I got to test it. I got to try to correlate it. Who knows? But I've had crazy things happen. But ever since I had that one encounter where I spoke about something disappearing, people will label you. People will say that, oh, this or that person went like, I mean, look what they've done to Dr. Johnson. That's his work. I don't stick up for it. That's not my business. But nobody gives it that credence. And I tell you, I trust like Ed Brown. I trust Claudia. And Claudia's told me some things that are really real out there. And look what happened to Adam Davies. I mean, there are things that we don't understand. And that's some of the problem. I mean, I don't know if it's paranormal. I just know that there's a lot of researchers that are down to earth and they find a ton of crazy things. Orbs, lights, UFOs.
I watched your live video where that camera went flying over that log and you were nowhere near it.
I was there. That's crazy. Yeah,
I saw it. I mean, I saw the damn thing go over. That thing didn't tip over, didn't fall over. That thing went over a log.
That's some of the things I try to tell people. That's why I did the magnetic experiment in the woods, because I was looking at the structures, okay? From a logical mind. No other animal in the wild builds a structure to follow from point A to point B. Why would they? They know their way through the woods, okay? So why would they build these structures? I was kind of looking at it like energy hub or some type of something. Trees have energy, the ground's negative, everything has energy. So that's why I did these magnetic tests near these structures, and we were finding these high fluctuations with the EMF detector. I mean, when you get spikes up to 180 on an EMF detector, there's something going on. So I don't know if it's how they're built or how they're put together, because we're just looking at them as trees, and everybody's like, oh, well, they're just following them. You're going to tell me that this species that has eluded us for hundreds or thousands of years needs to build structures to tell the next people where to go? No, they're in tune with the earth. They know their habitat. I don't have to say, hey, Mom, tell Uncle Bill that structure's there because the water's over there. Do you see what I'm saying? That's the point that I'm getting at. Like, if they're so smart to stay elusive, why the hell would they build these structures?
Next time you find a structure, look at it at night and see what stars it's pointed to, or if it's in any type of have anything to do with a constellation or a star or anything.
I was thinking about that exact same thing the other day, man. That's a really good idea. I was thinking about that the other day. Every monolithic or ancient temple or whatever is all laid out to that sacred geometry. It's all laid out in stars. And, these things, there's something, like Ryan says, there's something more to it.
Well, you're talking about
the structures, and then check him checking it out at night to see his suggestion to see if they point to any constellations or any stars or.
Right. Well, for the viewers, the megalithic structures, like the pyramids point to the stars and they all align. They found that Stonehenge the Stonehenge is completely in line with something else on the same parallel over here, like in the United States. There's certain grid patterns, but could those grid patterns tap into the Earth's energy? Could they be wanting that? We don't know these things because nobody's trying to take a scientific look at it. I mean, because it falls under the paranormal thing. You know what I mean?
Another thing, Ryan. Ryan, look what those structures are found, and look what's in the ground. See if it's quartz. See if it's iron ore. See what kind of metal, natural metals or gems, or the see what the ground is made up of, because that could also have an effect of it. Because I've always heard quartz or sand, no, limestone. Limestone is a thing for spirits. You know, and all that research I did with the spirits, you know, limestone kept coming up. It's you know, we don't know, but
we've got
the
a
sun,
lot,
the moon.
we've got a lot of limestone. We've got a lot of granite. You know, it's just things that I'm looking into. I'm not trying to delve into the paranormal, but if I can start just putting little pieces together that create this puzzle, you know, like I said, I go back to the structure thing, and I cannot fathom that these things are building these tree structures to tell other clan members or family members that, hey, you got to go this way, you got to go that way. These things are smart.
Sure
They're too smart.
Oh, plus, I mean, if you notice when you're in the woods, you're not seeing in the structure. It's a lot of times the gates I see. If you notice, like direction markers, if you look up in the woods, there's always that one pointer, those pointer sticks. Now, those I could see being a directional or a note stick, but the structures, some of those are too ornamental. It's like they're expressing something in it, and you know that it just more to it than just that.
Here's another book. You just brought this up. So this book, I'll give you the title. It's called Bigfoot Field Guide in the Shadows: Marker Analysis and Bigfoot Research. MABRC, they wrote this, and it gives a great breakdown of tree structures and markers and where they were actually found and what they correlate these things to be. The upside down trees. They've even got glyphs in here. Like Mark Abel has found, you know, on the rocks, the drawings, all kinds of stuff. It's another book for the viewers to pick up, or anybody.
Maybe they're like gang signs.
Good.
Maybe they're like gang signs. Maybe they're a symbol, and each one of them knows what that symbol is, and it's like, hey, this is our territory. You come in here, there's gonna be a problem. You know, I mean, we don't know. We don't know, but it's just if you don't have theories to question or to get out there and to research, then you got to have that theory. You got to have something to go on.
Well, the way I look at it, that's what science is: questioning and testing.
Sure, hypothesis and.
Right. I don't even want to form that yet. I just want to question it and test it, and to see where it's at. And then if I find something, and a light bulb goes off, and I can retest it, and then I can gain my hypothesis. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at. I do want to try to use some type of science in a way. I mean, science is just a general word. You need to do some type of experiments and studies. And
sure.
I'll tell you what's really been scratching my head lately are the glyphs. The glyphs that we've been finding, they're so intricate, and I mean they really catch your eye. Something about those that's just really. I really want to find out what those are going at. I'd almost like to look at hieroglyphics and see if something lines up.
I mean, there's so many things we don't know about our history, from Machu Picchu to Lake Titicaca and all the tunnels that were found. Oh, there's so much stuff nobody ever knows. But I was going to ask Dave what his thought on and then Chris what his thought on structures were, or what he believes they mean.
You want to go first, Chris?
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. Like I had mentioned before, I'm personally am trying to take my exploration of this from the bottom, one step at a time, and kind of just seeing where it leads me. Of course, I expose myself to everything I can get online, article-wise, videos and books. The books like you're showing, Ryan. So I don't know if my opinion is basic, but first off, I want to say that how we're sitting here speculating about what they are, that's no matter what anybody comes up with, no matter how far out and crazy it is, it's okay and it's needed. So that's fine. Don't be discouraged. I know a lot of people are afraid to say this or that publicly because they're going to be viewed a certain way. You know, there's nothing wrong with speculating, as long as you're pointing out that, hey, this is a thought because of this and this, and we'll see where it takes me. But anyway, my thought is, first and foremost, as you guys first started talking about it, what popped in my head is is like the glyphs that Mark is finding. Compare those to like old cave drawings, right? You go into caves all over the world and there's like outlined, like the first artists, right? The early humans. And it's like, why did they do that? Right? All they were doing was drawing their surroundings and this and that. It was something inside of them that you know, I guess something that made them human and makes us human, where they just kind of needed to do that and get that out. In my mind, the Sasquatch are doing something similar. At this point, I think they're doing something very similar generally, and that is kind of that's their cave drawing. The asterisk out there, the leans. I mean, all of us, I think, have seen it at this point personally, and you go into these areas and all of a sudden you find, you know, an outer gate, as you were calling them, but, you know, stacks of logs, and you basically go on the other side, and then the entire area for a full acre or half acre, quarter acre, whatever, is littered with trees that look like they're systematically being prepared to be used for something. So my thought generally is that they are expressions, that this is just what the Sasquatch do. I also think it's a method somewhat of communication. The X's, for example, to me, they seem consistent. They seem consistently put in places like the outer part of the areas that the Sasquatch go into. So if I'm going into an area that we would call a wallow or a Sasquatch area, on the outside or the perimeter of these areas, very consistently, I see these X's. So that, to me, that means something. To me, that means that there's Sasquatch saying that they're here, or this is mine. Maybe it is, maybe there's little small intricacies that they understand that we don't, that is kind of like a gang sign, right? They're just flashing a little different. But generally speaking, I think they're expressing themselves. And then there's also some structures that are kind of marking their area. So in a way, that's communicating with other Sasquatch. But that's all I think really at this point.
Yeah, I agree with Dave too on all that. I think the X's are very, very special to them. I think they use the X as like they worship the X. That's what I believe. And I agree with Ryan too about the energy and everything about that. I think that has to do with the structures too, the way they build them and the way it draws from the earth. And yeah, so I agree with about everything that everybody else said too. But I really believe that the X's are very special to them.
Hey, Chris.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Something you just said just rung in my mind. You said the X, how they may worship it. Do you know the original cross, like the Holy Cross, was an X and not a cross?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird you said that, you know?
Yep. I just think you see them, everybody's territories, wherever you go. I mean, I don't find teepees. I don't find like these big elaborate structures, but everywhere I see that everybody goes, there's X's. Everywhere.
I got an X right by my house. I've never touched it. I just let it be there.
I just had one appear outside my back door. I haven't been in the woods in over a month. We started hearing wood knocks out in my back of my house. And then my wife woke up in the middle of the night, 1:30 in the morning, and heard screaming out in the woods. She lived in the woods. She's heard baby rabbits being killed, stuff like that. This woke her up and scared her to death. The following day, there was an X on the corner of the woods.
That doesn't surprise me.
Shaky, we just had this conversation.
What's that?
You were telling me how you were hearing sounds all of a sudden.
Oh yeah,
remember?
yeah. We got an X right up by our driveway now. I haven't messed with it. My wife, she doesn't believe in Bigfoot, but she called me one day on the phone and said, "You need to get out here." She was outside. She was getting rocks thrown at her, getting growled at.
Jeez.
Do you think they come looking for you if you're not around them for a little while? Because I got sick, I had surgery, and I was always at one of my areas all the time. Well, I haven't been there for a month. Do you think they come looking for you?
I don't know. I really don't know.
It's an interesting.
Ryan's got a one that follows him around, a female. She loves them.
I'm sure they know your scent. I'm sure they can follow your scent, just like any animal.
I don't tell too many people that, but Dan's a researcher in my area. I've never divulged that to any of you guys, but
Sorry, I'm sorry. I let that out, and I didn't mean to.
Now
You got a
everybody
crush on
knows.
Ryan?
what's that?
You got a crush on Ryan?
I don't know what to think, but I've noticed I try to map these core areas. So if you've got 5,000 acres, I noticed there's multiple core areas that they move to certain times. They may stay in one area for a week and then move off to the next. Either it's based on food or supply or abundance or whatever the situation calls for, but they move off. And then when I quit, usually every October, I'm kind of just like, I put Bigfoot on the back burner, I take it out of my mind, and I focus on hunting. And that's what we've done for the last 25 years. I'm a hunter, and that's what it is. We go to our private hunting grounds, which is not far from the Bigfooting research areas. And we started having things happen there. And I'm just pretty sure that she follows me based on me seeing her and things happening. I don't know why. I mean, from the talking to seeing her and things that happen, it's just it's odd because this hunting property never had any type of Bigfoot activity. Nothing. I mean, the homeowner said that they had heard things, back in the day, but now there's structures on the property. We hear things that this property's were actually seen. I actually seen a Bigfoot disappear on this property. And I hate talking about it because people will think that you're crazy. They will come up with any concoction to I don't know. Either way, it happened. And so I don't know if this property has something to do with it or if she's following me. But there are crazy things. I haven't told that to anybody. Dan actually kind of let that out of the bag. I try to keep some things.
Apologies.
I would have called you crazy too, but now that I've been in the woods and I haven't experienced what I've experienced, it's an all go for me now. It's an all go. Yeah.
But if you're in the woods on a regular basis, weekly or whatever, these things have to know you're there. They smell you. They see you. So,
Trust.
it's just a matter of time before something attaches to you.
Yep.
And they could.
I mean, over the years, the ancients and everybody used to talk about energies and spirits and all kinds of crazy things. There's more things in the woods than Bigfoot. I mean, we're already talking about Bigfoot, which seems to be a crazy subject because people want to label you. But when you get out there and you're doing like Chris says, he would have thought I was crazy. But you get out there and you're out there 3-4 days a week or whatever it may be, you will start to experience these things. And you're just like, what do I do with this? And the only reason I ever told that encounter about this whole situation is because I wanted to be true to my research. I didn't care what people thought. I wanted people to know I was down to earth and grounded, and I was going to try to figure this situation out. But when you're sitting in a tree stand and you got your bow and you're hunting, and this thing comes out and this whole thing happens to you, and it walks over and it grabs something, and it turns around and it walks back, and it took a breath. Like I could see it breathe. Like it tipped its head and went like that. This is a few years ago now, but when it did that, and then it walks behind this tree up off to my left, and it just cuts behind it. And when it cut behind it, the leg came out, and then I was anticipating the rest of the body to come out. It never did. And all I seen was this flash of blue light, man, just, and I couldn't.
Hey, I'll tell you something that happened. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, it wasn't me.
But 2 years before, about 2-3 years before Ryan and I met, I was actually gifting in a spot that's probably maybe 100 yards away from where Ryan saw that Bigfoot disappear. I didn't know Ryan did it. We didn't know each other, but we were that close. And I would have I had pretty good success, but then taking stuff out. And all of a sudden, whenever I would take my dogs up there or would take the kids up for a walk to the creek, I would hear this talking. As soon as I stopped gifting this year, but it's just kind of amazing how you can, like, we were that close. This stuff's going on. I never knew it. A small world, I guess, but to have that stuff happening, I wonder if it's happening to me, to him out there that just don't say a word every day, you know?
I tell you what, I'll tell you this what happened to me about a month ago, and the only person really knows this is one other researcher I think I told. And my son and I were coming back to the house. It was evening. It wasn't dark, but it was evening, late evening. And the mountain we live on, the road comes up to that mountain, then it goes up the mountain. We got to come around. We both saw a red light flash on almost to the top of that mountain, but there was maybe a little bit down, maybe 3/4 of the way up the mountain. Red light flashed, and then about 100 yards straight diagonal or straight to the right of it, it flashed again, and that was it. There's no reason, rhyme or reason or anything else for a red light to flash on that side of that hill. But we both saw it. If I saw it by myself, I'd have brushed it off, but we both saw it.
Now, not to interrupt you, I know Dave likes to stay grounded, but have you experienced anything that's out of the norm?
Who do you mean?
I was asking Dave.
Oh.
Okay. I mean, the whole damn thing's out of the norm as far as I'm concerned. But anything that really stands out, not really. No. I've been in a few encounter situations and have been surrounded by these guys quite obviously, and I could not understand. I could not believe that I couldn't see these guys. There was one situation in particular. There was one. They seemed really, really worked up. We were in this area, and one of them far off was making all kinds of freaking noise, and later on we kind of figured out it was because we thought it was because it was trying to get our attention to go that way and move out of the area. But these things will surround you for some reason. See, every time this has happened, I've been surrounded. There's always been more than one, and usually there's at least 3 or 4, and they seem to like go around you at a certain distance, and they'll move around like clockwise or something like that. But anyway,
flank you.
Yeah, it's very, very, very strategically before they make themselves known. They're in a position to where if you're going to do anything about it, they're going to kick your ass, and they know it. It's so incredible. The intelligence associated with that is insane.
Wolves do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, really scary. But in this case, we're paying attention to the one off at our 12 o'clock or whatever, and I started hearing snaps and little stuff behind me, but I realized that there's something behind me following me. And the dogs that were there with us at this time, they do a certain thing around these guys very consistently. So I knew that besides that one, there were other ones. And the sounds I was hearing meant that this thing was within a certain distance, and I tried as hard as I possibly could to try and surprise him, looking like I couldn't see the damn thing anywhere, and I couldn't figure out how this thing was following me. You know, it was almost like it was invisible. But I'm not saying it was. It was just that to me was like really profound. But other than that, I haven't seen anything. I have not seen the lights in the forest at this point.
Well, come on up to New York.
Yeah, I know. I heard. There's a lot of people I know. Colorado seems to be a really weird place, guys. One of the, I mean, he has a YouTube channel, one of these guys, and he, for some reason, he's always going out and sending me pictures. He's like, look, freaking UFO, and pictures and videos of UFOs and legitimate UFOs very often. And it's freaky. And then, of course, Mark Abell, so he used to tell me this, like, you know, a year and a half ago or something. He's like, I don't get it. There's other things out here with Bigfoot. And I was like what? And he's like, I don't know what to call it. They look like aliens. Some of them look like this or that. Well, he very recently he's been posting some videos that show what is it called? They're titled Bigfoot Confirmed, where he's like just showing still shots and this and that, and for the very first time he included photos of some of these beings that look like they're not Sasquatch. They're hairless, different shaped heads. They look very, very alien, very extraterrestrial. So there's a lot of weird stuff out there, that's for damn sure. But I haven't seen any of it.
I've had this one lady was telling me about it looks like they call it what is it, a streak or a screek, or it's a really big, it's supposed to be really lanky. And it's hairless.
Oh, the rake?
But white. Yeah, kind of like a rake, but it's in the same area. It's basically those same people that have the cabin, and the way they describe it, it's got this like it's a rubbery look to it, like, you know, and it's not necessarily like extended to the point where it's like supernatural or animated, but it's just a really strange. It could be construed as alien or whatever the way they explained it. But Dave, when you described a little earlier when you were talking about a gate with all the activity and then the asterisks and anything, you were like describing this one area to the T that I go to. It just kind of, I wanted to mention that. It sent a chill down my spine because it was like you were describing a place, the last place I actually went out this year. It just seemed so, you know, it's like, it's funny how we're thousands of miles away and we're seeing the same things.
I mean, you guys probably seen the video that I saved from a game camera. The alien thing too, like we label our rooms. Like I call them rooms. I label all my research areas. I have one area called the green room, and I didn't do too much there this year, but I did capture what seemed to be like an alien. Like it had a green face and it was kind of far off going through the woods in a knelt down position. And you kind of write these things off in the beginning, and then I caught this face up near a tree where it's all white and it's glowing. That's in the book. That'll be in the book. It's crazy. Like, and I'm sharing these photos because I don't know what they are. And then the video that I shared, these lights are kind of like, at first I thought it was a spider maybe on the camera, like with its legs. But then there's points where you can tell nothing is on the camera, and these lights are going through the woods from a fixed high position. You know, they're pointing down, they're illuminating the trees, and crazy things are going on. So it's like, it looks like a stick kind of like levitates and disappears. It's really crazy. Like, so how do you do this research and discount that stuff? That's what I need to know. And the panel is
had no answer from nobody.
You know,
you can't.
Exactly.
You can't. You have to take every piece of evidence you got and you got to put it in the little file thing in your brain and try to put that jigsaw puzzle together somehow.
Yeah, my last video I just put out, I have a trail camera footage of for 6 minutes of a light that moved from branch to branch, and then finally at the end of the video, it moved to the front of the branch and grew bigger, and it looked like it was ready to take off from the tree, but the trail camera turned off. It's really crazy. It was really cool, though. Really cool.
Kind of like Dan was saying, we're thousands or hundreds or thousands of miles apart. And at some point, even your flesh and blood, hardcore, 50-year researchers are experiencing these things. Some of them will talk about it. Some of them won't. Some will stay under the radar, truly. But I figure I'm just going to talk about it. If I find it, I'm going to share it, and you're going to see it. And I don't care what people think it is, because I know that it's all real. Everything we share is from the woods. That's what it is, you know. I can try to focus on prints, but I'm not an anthropologist, you know. That's kind of why I want to focus on the audio. The audio is really key, because when you start catching these things and hearing this language, I mean, I think we got farther with Ron Moorhead's audio than we did with Patty, because scientists looked at that and they're still at the point where it's fake, it's real, it's fake, it's real. You know what I mean?
People need to get over the fear of being ridiculed. That right there is the problem. Once people lose the fear of the ridicule and being laughed at and teased or whatever, and I even mean in this community, once they get over that fear and it stops, then they will come out and talk more about things that they wouldn't normally. You know, I mean, they already said it's safe for me to talk about Bigfoot. Everybody here talks about Bigfoot, but something else could be going on that they won't talk about because of fear of being ridiculed for it. And that's what we got to get past.
I think we lost Dave anyway. I think
things are definitely changing quick.
Go ahead, Dan.
Things are changing quick with finding Bigfoot and all this stuff out there. I notice now with YouTube and everything, it's starting to change little by little. It's better than it was back in 2010. And people are you still have your jackasses, but you know.
I kind of got you a little muffled
there. I'm sorry.
Kind of a little muffled there for some reason. Your voice sped up. It's all like.
It's the government.
Don't say that, because I have a story I can tell you guys. I don't really want to tell it on air.
Don't tell it then.
But I got something I'll tell you guys. Like, I think we can stick around when we hop off here. It's almost 9:30.
Hey, I got to get off here myself though. I'm going out of town tomorrow. I got some traveling to do, and I got to get ready for it. So
that's
I'll catch up with you on that story.
I'm gonna hop.
Thank you very much for letting me be a part of this.
Hey, no problem, brother. I'm trying to bring everybody and anybody that has some type of knowledge base that can, you know, I try not for nothing, not that I have anything against beginners, but I'm trying to get people that have been doing this for a little bit, because I want their knowledge, I want their input, something that can make me say, oh, wow, I need to look into that. That, you know, expand the knowledge base is what I'm looking for. But sometimes beginners will have that, you know, certain thing that you need. But anyway, yeah, it's about 9:30. I was talking to everybody in the chat room. We're going to hop off here, guys. I appreciate all you in the chat. This has been Cryptid Talk 2018. We'll be getting together more often. It's wintertime, so, you know, I like to share things, especially we can't get out in our region. In Western New York, it kind of gets hard. But I like to hear stories from other people. I like to hear encounters. And we definitely want to pass this information around. Check out the books that I shared in this series. You might, you know, gain some insight from them. My book should be done pretty soon. Hopefully, you know, get it out within the next 60 to 90 days here. You'll get more info on that. But I appreciate it, and I thank you. I think Dave just came back. We're actually going to be hopping off, and I appreciate his input too.
Hey, where is Dave from?
I'm in Southern California.
Southern California?
Yeah, okay. But I've researched in a lot of different places in Utah and Idaho, a little bit in Oregon and a little bit in Nevada. So, and I'm just discovering my area here. I'm in Southern California and starting to come across some incredible stuff. I haven't posted any video yet. I want to get more info, but I may have found these things literally on the eastern border of Orange County, California, and Riverside County in Southern California, which is incredible.
So save that for another discussion.
I will.
Close to city limits.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. Don't forget, you know, we got Bigfoot. What is it? Bigfoot Berkshire?
Berkshire Bigfoot.
There you go. We got Sasquatch Omega. So, guys, we're out of here. Cryptid Talk 2018. We'll be touching base. Maybe try to do it, you know, once a week or every, you know, couple weeks just to share some information. Thanks, guys. Later.